So, guys, thanks a lot for inviting me to come talk to you today. So, when I had mentioned to Rosella I was coming to town and she told me about the camp, she thought that maybe I could come and talk to you guys about how, even with my power share, I still can have a full and independent life and do all sorts of different things. And what I found interesting was when I posted on my Facebook on Wednesday night that I'm coming to Ottawa for a festival, because I'm here. That's actually why I came to Ottawa, for the country festival that's happening this weekend. So I posted that I'm coming to the festival and to talk to you guys about having an independent life. And then I'm going back to Montreal to kick off a week involving, aside from regular work, 3 comedy shows. And I'm also involved in organizing the Miss Earth Canada beauty pageant. So I have that in Montreal starting on Wednesday. So one of my friends commented on the wall, an independent and busy life. I think it's important that we remember, just because we're in a wheelchair doesn't mean that we still can't do things and have an independent life. So as Roselle mentioned, I drive a car, so the van is adapted, that I'm able to basically, because I can't, in my case, I'm able to get out of the wheelchair, so I can drive the wheelchair into the car and then drive with my one good foot. And then, so I drive, I work, I do the comedy and motivational speaking, and a lot of what I talk about is overcoming challenges, because admittedly, perhaps things are not as accessible as they could be. That's one challenge. And I think it's important to remember, even though we may have those challenges, we still can do things.
Were you born with the artificial leg?
Well, actually, in theory, I was basically born missing a bone. So, like, my ankle was kind of connected to where your knee would be. So they made it that I would be able to get an artificial leg. So I got my first artificial leg when I was 18 months old. And I'm actually going to be 36 next month. So I've had it for a while. Obviously not the same one, because I've grown over time.
You can't walk.
Because part of the disability, it's not so much the artificial leg as part of the skeleton that was not properly formed was my hips and my knee. So because they were constructed over time, they've kind of worn with, and it sounds funny coming from someone who's 36, but they've worn with age. I actually was talking a few weeks ago to a group of seniors, and I joked that while I may be 36, my joints are anywhere from 60 to 80, depending on the day. So because as I got older and they kind of wore out, so to speak, it became more difficult to walk. So I do walk a little bit, like around the house, in my office, stuff like that. But for the longer distances, I use the wheelchair.
And my second question is, do you do just for laugh gags in
Just for laughs gags? No, I play gags on Friends, but not on Just for Laughs gags. I actually auditioned once for Just for Laughs Festival, but I didn't get taken in. So hopefully one day. So if Just for Laughs is watching this video, I'm waiting.
Could you tell us about some of your adaptations at work and how your experience like it?
At work, I think I always tell people the ideal attitude about workplace adaptation. I remember when I started with Deloitte & Touche, I did my CA stage with them. And I remember I started as a co-op student, and I was invited, there was like a group day up north during the summer, so they invited me to come. And the managing partner picked me up at a metro station to drive up north with me. And we were just chatting in the car, and so we went up, and during the first coffee break, he pulled me aside and he said to me, sometimes it's difficult to know if someone has a disability, what kind of help we should offer. So I want you to know I'm going to treat you the same as everyone else. And if ever there's anything, my door's always open, come and we'll figure it out. And I mean, anytime I went to ask him a question or talk to him, he was more than happy. Oops. Okay, everyone's good? Okay. I do that all the time. You should see the entrance to my condo. The door frame is a little cracked. I'm coming home. I'm like, how do I maneuver? Tight spaces are not friends to wheelchairs. So yeah, in work. And sure enough, like if there was an issue and I went to talk to him, sometimes there was a question if I couldn't drive very long distances, they would book me on clients within a certain radius. When I started working at Investors Group as a financial advisor, there was no button on the door to the building, so they put a button on the door so that it would open. It was funny because it took them a while to configure with the pass, and after about 2 days of them finally getting it just right, I go to one of my colleagues, do you think they see the humor if I told them I'm quitting? But I actually used that joke when I was leaving. I'm like, that's my goal. I'm going to come work at different buildings until all buildings in Montreal are accessible. Yeah.
Like, say if you go on a trip, like on an airplane, do you have another wheelchair that's manual so you can go on like a plane?
That's an excellent question. Traveling, it takes a little bit more planning. I used to, when I would travel like for work to Toronto and things, I actually used to use the Air Canada wheelchair. They have manual wheelchairs. And then I would just manage without the wheelchair in Toronto. And then I realized that kind of limited me a lot because I'd basically be stuck in the hotel. Because again, like I wouldn't, if something's a couple of blocks from the hotel, you're not going to go. Whereas now I actually do take the wheelchair. So Air Canada is getting better at taking wheelchairs. It's they have a very bad history of damaging wheelchairs on Air Canada.
You go in the cabin with the wheelchair?
Well, what happens is, so basically Air Canada, they now have a whole protocol. So if you fly with Air Canada and you're taking a power wheelchair, leave plenty of time in advance. Like for example, I'm flying to Calgary in September. When I get back to Montreal, I'm going to go start checking in. But just to cover my bases. Some of the other airlines I find a little bit better, but anyway. So they actually have a protocol where they'll take it, and then usually on the other end, you can arrange to have adapted taxis help you. It was interesting. I actually went to Cuba over Christmas, and it took some coordination, like how finding an accessible resort. And then the question was, do they have an adapted taxi? And they're like, yeah, we'll get you an adapted taxi. Adapted taxis in Cuba are basically 4 guys lifting the wheelchair onto the back of a bus. But hey, they managed to do it. Yep.
But the advantage is like you get to go on the first because you're in a wheelchair.
Yeah, that I gotta say is pretty sweet. I kind of enjoy that. Because they'll take away the wheelchair and then I'll walk onto the plane. And because I walk kind of slow, I think they don't say it, but I think they're like, okay, we don't want to have to wait for you to get to the back of the plane, so I get upgraded to first class for free, which is always really sweet. And in first class you get, which you guys don't know yet, but one day you will appreciate when you get the free drinks.
And you get like good seating.
Yeah, and I don't know if you take the train, but on the train, via the tie down for the wheelchair is actually in first class. So you get Tara's like, oh hey,
we need to travel more often.
I use that in my comedy routine. I'm like, ladies, if you date me, you gotta go in first class. Advantages of having a boyfriend in a wheelchair. But I remember the first time I took Via and I brought my wheelchair, they're like, okay, you're getting upgraded to first class. So you get like the meal and again, you have a few years to be excited about it, but free alcohol is always good when you're an adult. I'm specifying that.
I have a few sips of Bud Light.
Keep that between us.
And this is why we're not filming you guys, so nobody knows. That's excellent. Authorities, he happens to be above 18, or 19 if we're in Ontario. So I remember, so I'm like, okay, this is great. And then I show up at the hotel, and the guy told me that they were worried the regular room, the wheelchair wouldn't get into the regular room, so we're going to give you a suite. And I'm like, this is awesome. I'm never traveling without the wheelchair again.
And we got lots of free stuff because I was in a wheelchair. That's the advantage.
Yeah, because actually I remember I once went, when Montreal had a baseball team, we went to, my friend and I didn't have the wheelchair at the time. I was walking, so I went to, we went up to a guy and asked, where do you get bleacher seats? And the guy goes, oh, you have to go outside and walk up the ramp to get the bleacher seats. So I'm like, okay, so my friend and I left, and then he stopped us, he goes, hang on a sec, because I guess he realized it's too far for me to walk. And he handed us 2 tickets to go sit like down near like home plate, and I'm like, this is fantastic. So then the next year we went back, and we went up to another guy and said, where do we get bleacher seats? But that guy made us walk upstairs. it didn't quite work. There's disadvantages. You got to also work the advantages to in your favor.
Yes.